So, what I want to talk about now is two subjects. First one is going to be a bit hairy, I think. The second one is going to be a bit more understanding the logistics of ascension in terms of how it affects us. So the first one is about fear. Does everybody understand what fear means and what it is? Yeah? Does somebody want to give me an example? Okay? No? Well, fear is resistance. It's resistance to change. Okay? And if you think about it, every time we resist something, we have a little bit of fear in us, don't we? We don't want to do it. And when we are in fear of something, irrespective of what it is, whether it's doing a job at work, whether it's being part of a group of people, whether it's joining a club, whether it's embarking upon a new discipline of some sort, we have this little bit of trepidation inside us, this little bit of fear, this resistance to accepting the change that's going to happen within and without us as a result of our exposing ourselves to this new opportunity for gathering new experience, learning, and subsequent evolution. So, when we do experience this fear of change and a desire to not go down a certain route, what do you think we should do? Any ideas? What's the biggest fear behind fear?
The unknown.
Change, the unknown. Any other thought processes?
Death.
Death? That's a big change. That's a big fear, yeah.
I just heard that somewhere.
Limitlessness.
Limitlessness, big fear, okay.
Power. Powerful.
They're all good answers, but really the thing which is the thing which is the major motivator behind fear is failure. Isn't it? Yeah. We fear not being able to do it. We fear failure. We're happy in our comfort zone, doing what we're doing and doing it well, and we get used to be able to doing things well. We get used to be able to doing things in an almost automatic condition. So when we do embark upon something new, or sometimes we're literally thrust into something new, or we're suddenly deposited into something new, this fear that overcomes us is based upon the possibility that we might fail. Again, this fear of change. We're moving away from that which we are to something new, and possible failure of moving from that to that. We can't cope, we can't do it. I can't possibly learn this. This is too difficult. Oh, these people are young, so they can do it okay, but I can't. I'm 52 or 60 or 70 or 80 in some cases. And it really is about confidence, having the confidence that you can do it, you can change. So if we think of fear as a resistance to change and a motivator for failure, then if we turn it around and think, actually, there is no failure, there is only experience. So even if we, for instance, embarked upon a college course and we found it hard and we dropped out halfway through, have we failed? From an academic perspective, the institution may think we've failed, but from a personal perspective, the information that we've received and worked with, and that we will have grown in some way, has allowed us to succeed in some way. Another thought process: if we do drop out of a course, what's another reason for it?
Bored.
Apart from boredom, we've taken the information that we need to take. We only needed to take half of it, for instance, as part of our growth, and therefore it wasn't going to be efficient for us to continue it from our growth, from a higher perspective. So again, it's not failure as such. It's more recognising the beauty behind what we're experiencing and moving forwards with it. So if we think in terms of this resistance to change being a resistance to change based upon the possibility of failure, which causes fear within us, then we can think of it in terms of, well, that's the worst case scenario. That actually it's our own perceptions that are causing the problem. If we look at it from a higher perspective and think of everything in terms of experience and the learning associated with that experience and the subsequent evolution from that learning, irrespective of whether we complete a course, we're able to pass our driving test first time round, or we do it second time or third time, or whether we can do a certain meditation first time round. It isn't about the fact that we think we've failed, it's about the experience that counts. So when we turn it around and think, okay, I'm experiencing that which I'm experiencing, and therefore there is no failure, there is no need to progress things, then we shouldn't fear anything at all. We should walk through our daily life and realising that actually everything is experience, and therefore any opportunity for experiencing new things, which ultimately makes us grow anyway, we shouldn't fear, because it doesn't matter. It's just experience. And whenever we do bail out, if we do bail out, or drop out, whichever way we want to think of it, is really part of a bigger plan where we're supposed to take that route. We're supposed to move on and do something else because we've taken from it that which we needed to take from it, and therefore we can move on as a result of that. And sometimes this dropping out of something, or this going a certain distance and stopping it, is a motivator and gives us more confidence that we can do something else. Or it might be a point, a juncture, where we do need to change direction and go that way rather than go this way. And that we may have needed to go down this route to enable us to go down another route, which is more in keeping with where we are. But the first route is a catalyst to make us go down the second route. So anything that we do think we fear actually shouldn't be feared at all. It should all be considered as part of our experience and subsequent evolution. So this fear, this resistance to change, should just be ignored, really. And we shouldn't even worry about our own capability, because that's, again, another thing that we fear, our capability. Again, fear of failure, because we will cope in the way we're supposed to cope, with what we're supposed to cope with. Does that all make sense at all?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yes. Because it's something that is riddled within us throughout our incarnate life. And we all get to certain points where we've got to make a decision, or go down this way or go down that way. And we feel this trepidation, oh, I don't like this, this is taking me outside of my box, as it were. It's stretching my envelope. Yeah? But if we don't do it, we just stay where we are. We're not progressing. But sometimes even not doing it is part of the process. The decision to not do something is also okay. So irrespective of whether we think we can go halfway down, or whether I don't think I can do this, but let's have a go, that's okay as well. If we think, well, I don't think I can do that, I'm not going to do that, I'm going to do this instead, or I'm going to do nothing and just continue where I am, that's also okay. But all we need to do is recognise that the resistance that we may have is either a motivator for change, or is a motivator for gaining additional experience. And therefore, the supposed fear factor surrounding it doesn't really count at all, because it's not necessary for us to worry about what's happening to us. All we need to do is accept that what we're experiencing is what we're experiencing, and we're experiencing it for a reason, because it's part of our greater plan. And it's as simple as that. I don't really think there needs to be any more explanation there, unless somebody has a question that they want answering.
Yeah. There's a motivator that could be a little bit like the slingshot.
In terms of accelerating our evolution, eventually it'll be a little part of that bigger picture that we're working with. Eventually, yeah. Yeah. It's all part of the experience and the learning and the evolving cycle.
Okay, so if you say you're taking a class and you drop out because it's not what you thought it was, or it's scary or something, doesn't a part of you still stay on that course?
Of course they
From
do.
what some what you said before.
Yeah.
So we're getting it anyway.
Which is another reason why you shouldn't fear it. Because at some point, the part of you that's dropped out, whether this part of us ends up being the part that's dropped out, the other aspect that took the decision not to drop out is still doing it. So the higher self is still experiencing the continuation of what we're doing. But it's just that this particular aspect has decided to do something else instead.
Yeah, we have.
So I've got people in order. I used to work in a bar in my youth, so I know how to serve people in order and see the higher frequency people. Thank you.
My question is like, what about fear of like things like snakes or bugs or spiders, stuff like that? How does that compute? I mean, to me that doesn't seem like fear of failure. What kind of fear would that be? I mean, you know, why would?
That's a very good question, actually. I might have to ask for higher help. Okay. Some of it is based upon pre-programming in our early years from our parents.
Right.
What they don't like, they pass on to us. Okay? What they force us to do that we don't want to do creates a resistance. So for instance, if one of our siblings, or even our siblings, you know, our brothers and sisters, if one of them decides to grab a frog, for instance, and rub it in your face as a young person, you don't like what was happening to you, irrespective of what was being pushed in your face, you would have a dislike for being, what's the word for it, being...
Anywhere near a slimy frog.
Well, anyway, well, it's not so much that. It's the association with the frog is the frog is associated with the person who's being unpleasant to you.
Yeah.
So irrespective of whether or not it's a frog or a spider or a snake or something, that association is put onto the snake. It's like when you don't like food. Somebody somewhere has forced you to eat something, or you've been ill, for instance. You may have had food poisoning from something, and therefore you don't like it. Because the association with even if the food poisoning wasn't to do with what you've eaten, it may have been a stomach bug or a flu or something, you associate that pain with whatever that was eaten. And it's the same with the, you know, if you're being attacked by from your siblings with a frog or a snake, it's the attack that's the major driver. The focus is on the thing that you're being attacked with, but the major driver is the attack. It's just that we focus on that which is being used as the weapon. Also, we sometimes have preferences based upon past life information, where we may have, for instance, died from a snake bite. We may have died from a spider bite.
Yeah.
We may have, for instance, picked up a toad and it's got poison on its back, and that's caused us to be very ill in a past life. And so we start to bring through some of our things as well that cause us problems. So the fact of I've picked this toad up and it's got this poison on it, and it's caused my hand to swell and you know, and become you know, very, very poisoned, and could even cause rigor mortis, you know, could even cause I've forgotten the word for it now, but it's when the skin goes necrotous, it starts to die and goes black all over.
Gangrene,
Yeah, gangrene, you can get gangrene. This is because we've associated with our previous life, this thing caused me to have this big problem, and I lost my arm, for instance. And therefore, when in your next life you come into it, I don't like those, I fear those because they've caused me pain. Or the snake bites, the snakes, don't like those because I died from that. Or the spider, same sort of thing. So we start to pull into their current existence things that have affected us in the past as well, and that causes the fear of objects.
Thank you.
Can it be a collective thing, consciousness kind of thing? Because, you know, it's like so many people are afraid of snakes and spiders, and
Well,
can it be like a collectiveness when you come in with people that...
only in terms of there's bound to be hundreds of thousands of individuals or even millions of individuals who have met their met their death by a snake bite over the hundreds and probably thousands of incarnations you've had.
Yeah.
So it is natural to assume that the number of individuals that have incarnated, you will have died by a snake bite at some point in your existence, or you will have had a spider bite that's caused problems, or you've had gangrene from something at some point, or gained an infection from an animal bite. You know, those sorts of things. They will all come through at some point, and because you have so many different incarnations, and the billions of souls that are out there now have had so many opportunities for incarnation as well. You're all bound to have at some point encountered that way of going from here back into the energetic. Okay. Yes, please.
Yes. I want to talk about the fear that you encounter in a dangerous situation. For instance, being in a small airplane and suddenly getting into really violent weather.
Turbulent weather.
And the choice that you have, I've been in one, and I had a choice, do I panic or do I keep my cool, and how do I keep my cool?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a lesson. But I mean, we've all been in situations where we felt threatened by something, and we have a choice on how to react to that.
Yeah.
Maybe that's that old fight or flight instinct that we all are born
How do you
with.
rise above it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I can relate to that, because
Yeah.
I don't like turbulence in airplanes either. And it's quite interesting. I want to elaborate. I want to give you a little story here. When I was finishing off writing Beyond the Source Book 2, I was travelling from the UK to Shanghai, and Anne and myself, and my father as well was coming with me. We were going from the UK to Shanghai, Shanghai to Tokyo, Tokyo to Hong Kong.
Oh, wow.
And we were doing a round trip, and we were meeting up with some people who were practicing Aikido at the time. And I was on a plane, a Finn airplane, and they're a good crowd, and they're a really good crowd. And we hit some turbulence, and I was writing this thing on my phone, and I started to get really concerned. And I looked at Anne, and she's not bothered at all. She's reading this magazine, and Anne's the sort of person where if you put a coin slot on the chair in front of you to get more turbulence, she put the coin in. So she's looking at me saying, "You okay?" "Yeah, I'm okay." You know, white knuckle rise. "Yeah, I'm okay." And I suddenly sort of stood back. I thought, how ridiculous is this? Here I am, somebody who can project his consciousness across the multiverse, and I'm afraid of a little bit of thick, dense air hitting an aeroplane. How stupid is that? And the fear went from there down to there.
Yeah.
And it's just about recalibration of what's going on, where you are. When you start to realise that actually this isn't you, and the real you is energetic, and therefore even if this does end up in a pile of mush on the ground with a plane crash, you know, the real you doesn't die, the real you just transcends the physical. Then it starts to bring a whole new concept to it. The other thing is that actually, and this is the practical thing now, the pilot in front doesn't want to die either. Do they really? You know, and they do these bus trips, if you want to call it this, day in, day out, and they're used to the stuff. So whereas we might not get used to the turbulence because we only fly once every month, for instance, or once every 2 months, or maybe twice a year on holiday, they're doing it on a daily basis. So what they're used to experiencing is not what we're used to experiencing.
Yeah.
And therefore, you can always tell when they're a little bit concerned, because the cabin crew go and sit down.
Yeah.
And how often do the cabin crew sit down? Not very often. Not very often.
And when you're in a small single engine, your husband is the pilot and you're the navigator, and you're in the middle of a cell, and you're going up to 3,000 feet a minute, and then you're going down 3,000 feet a minute,
Yeah.
and hail and rain and everything else is hitting you.
Yeah.
You know, my first thought was, give me a parachute, I would navigate.
Yeah.
But then I said, no, I
Yeah.
need to be here and keep calm, and we are a team, and we
Yeah.
need to be
Yeah.
on the
And
ground.
there's a level of so the thing is the confidence side of things, isn't it? It's being
Yeah.
confident in what is happening around you.
Right.
Yeah.
And again, you come back to this thing about, I can do, this is something I need to experience, and some things are out of our control. So the experience is being out of control, isn't it? Even though we don't like it, I mean, I like before I had this major realisation, I would have liked to run up the corridor and grabbed hold of the joystick. I'll handle this, thank you very much, you know, and control the plane that way. But when you sort of realise that, you know, these things, they're designed for the stuff, you know. And as an engineer, one of the things I look for is how many times is that engine starting to oscillate or move around on its stanchion? How many times are the wing twitching up and down and moving, flexing? You think, how many flexes does it need to have before cracks appear?
Oh,
Yeah.
and I'm sure you're overthinking it.
Yeah, and you start to overthink it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Now, one of the things that's we need to understand is when these planes go through a clear air turbulence, they drop down, and the wings do a bit of that, and they come out the other side. It's only when you look at how the planes are tested that you realise that the wings can go right up to there before they snap off the fuselage. And there's no way that a plane would experience enough drop and then back into the air again to get anywhere near that. They go about there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
Oh, that's comforting.
So you should see the test involved. And also, so some of the fear is based upon lack of education.
Yeah.
Yeah? When we're educated in how things work, and as an engineer, one of the things that I need to do sometimes is see how things work and think, okay, I see how it works, I understand it, it's no problem. But unless we're educated, we do have this little bit of resistance about going with it, don't we?
Mm-hmm.
Once we're educated, it's not a problem. How many people had fear of driving the car when they first started to drive? Yeah? Because we didn't know what we were doing. We were there, you know? And it's the same sort of thing. When you're educated in how to drive the car, it's not a problem. You can drive up the freeway, you can go at 85, 90 mile an hour, which we can do in the UK. Well, shouldn't do in the UK, but we do. and you can control a car. You learn to work with it in icy conditions, in wet conditions, and in the dark, and it becomes normalised. So it's only when we become educated that we start to lose this fear content as well.
These all seem to be control issues though, because you know, I couldn't wait to get behind the wheel, but I know my mother was paralyzed for me to be behind the wheel with her in the passenger seat. And so then that's that other issue of control.
And trust on her behalf.
And, you know, when we're not, because like you taking the joystick on the airplane, the turbulence wouldn't bother me, but seeing some dude get out of his seat and go grab the pilot's controls, I'd be thinking, what's this guy think he's doing?
Yeah.
Then I would, because now I feel out of control.
Yeah.
So that's another, I think, a really huge
And
human
at the end of the day, would somebody like me moving up the front of the plane, taking control of the plane, make it any better? No, make it worse. Make it worse. So it's also about trust of what's happening in the environment around you. That, you know, what's going to happen will happen in the way it's supposed to happen. And I suppose in some instances a little bit of working with fatality or fate, you know, where if things aren't happening where you're supposed to transition from the physical, then that's the way you're going to go. Sometimes we don't like the thought process that precedes it, clearly we don't, but it's this fear of being removed from that which we think we are as well, which is a problem. So it's resistance from experiencing what we truly are. Again, it's this thing about recognising what we truly are, and we truly are not this. This is just a transient, a temporary aspect of what we truly are, to experience things here right now.
One thing that's very helpful is moving into a meditative state and breathe. And as we've talked some of our sessions with communicating with the weather, the wind, and sending out love and peace.
Good.
And asking for to be quiet. Why are you angry?
Yeah.
Let's have some calm.
Yeah.
And you know, removing yourself from that fear aspect into a neutral place.
Yeah.
So that's very helpful.
Yeah. I'll tell you something else that works. Send high frequency thoughts in front of the plane. And ask those high frequencies to normalise the difference between the density of the air and the lack of density of the air. Because turbulence is dense air and less dense air. Almost cloudy air, but not quite cloudy air. And just try to give it a one level of density, one level of frequency. And that works.
Yeah.
I've done it. I've turned turbulence on and off. Yeah, I've set the meditation, I've sent energy out about 1.5 miles, 2 miles in front of the plane. And I thought, right, I said, watch this, Anne. Having worked out I could do it, I said, we're experiencing turbulence now, let me turn it off. And within 10 seconds it had gone. Totally, and it stayed calm. I said, let go now. And it came back on in straight away. Because we're master creators, really.
Mm-hmm.
It's only our belief, our limitations.
Yeah.
Again, this thing, limitation, can't do it, resistance, fear, that stop us from doing what we can do.
What were you sending out?
High frequency, I
I-
basically to average out.
I know, but you're just saying just a tone or something, or a
Oh,
freak-
just imagine sending high
Call it
frequency.
in,
Yeah,
just
high.
like calling in white light around yourself. Call
Yeah.
in a
and
smooth
he's
frequency.
sending out.
Yeah, I send high frequency out so that the average frequency is above or equal to.
How do you know what a high frequency is in yourself?
You don't need to just
So you're sending out just like
Yeah.
love or light
yeah.
or
Well, you can bless the plane for a start.
Okay.
One example.
always do
But
that.
if you want to, you can say, okay, there's high and there's low frequency in the air, and the low frequency is the bumpy bits because we're going through denser air, so almost cloud. It's becoming physical, becoming gross physical, and the lighter bits, the higher frequency stuff, is less dense, and we go through it cleanly. So it's a bit like a boat going on the waves, just hitting the waves, doing that. Okay. So if you ask for the highs and lows to average out, so you get a single level of frequency, the plane starts to not have these bumps by going from high frequency air, which is clear, and low frequency air, which is almost cloudy type of air, and it'll go. And it makes a difference because it averages the density of the air out.
Right, I'm asking what's going in your thought process when you're doing that. What is your thought process?
So what does it look like? What does it sound like?
Yeah.
I-
What do you image?
Okay, what I imagine is a point in space in front of the plane where the density of the air is averaged out to one density. And that point in front of the plane is about 2 miles, because planes travel fast. Okay? And then I imagine a funnel from that coming out past the wingtips of the plane, so the plane's going into this funnel of normalised air density.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's what I was trying to
Okay, that's
get
fine.
from you. Thank you.
That's a good question, actually.
Thank you.
Yes.
Guy, on your CD and how to protect oneself,
Mm-hmm.
I suppose that fear, what you might feel instantly if you feel that you've been violated in some way, there would be fear.
Mm-hmm.
Does that fear, can the entity capitalize on that fear to do its, whatever it's going to do or wants to do? Or can they bring fear themselves and inject fear in you so that it makes their job easier? Like a mosquito can land on your hand and it first injects a narcotic that numbs the skin, an anesthetic,
Anesthetic, yeah.
so that you don't feel it.
Yeah.
And then it can penetrate, and so I wonder if they consciously use fear. Is that a source of fear that comes in?
They can use fear because fear creates weakness.
Mhm.
It's lack of constitution,
Sure,
isn't it? Yeah?
Sure.
Lack of constitution, and they can use fear because your aura is naturally weak if you are in fear of something.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're strong of constitution, they can't get through.
Okay.
The other way of getting through in this particular instance is if you are taking drugs or you're taking so much alcohol that you pass out. And then the auric layers start to peel away, and the energetic aspect of us gets the hell out of there, because the physical body is abhorrent to it. And then therefore sometimes you get these lower frequency entities, these astral entities, what they call that, can slip inside the aura and attach themselves to you, feeding off you.
There has been David Icke. Have you heard of him?
Yeah.
Now, he has said that there are interdimensional beings that feed off the fear of the human race, and that they tap into very fearful situations that maybe collectively the human race goes through, and that in fact they may create those or something in order to create fear in the human race and nurture themselves on it.
What I've just been told there is that's using fear to create fear.
Okay.
That it's inventing things to try to coerce people into going in a certain direction. There are people who want to create a level of control over people through the use of fear because they're low frequency individuals and they want to control you. And so for people who are susceptible to certain stories and information and they have a certain, shall I say, concern about it, these individuals use that level of concern to coerce people. Now, in terms of whether there is an entity or entities that can do that, there is nothing out there that can do that other than what is normally free energy that is just coalesced together, gained some level of intelligence, but can't metabolise its own perpetuity. It has to go and metabolise or get energy off a host. So there's no sentient entity out there who would do that. It's just, it's like, there was a question emailed to me about the Anukai.
Oh yes.
Anukai. I'd never heard of them, and the thing about the Anukai is it's supposedly a reptilian race. Now most humans don't like reptiles. Is that right? So somebody's invented an attraction to fear there for a start off, this reptilian race, and they're supposed to be plundering the earth for gold to take you back to refresh and renew the atmosphere on their planets. And I was asked this question: is it real? Does this civilization exist? Because nobody's answering the question on this. There's lots of stuff on the internet about it, but nobody's answering the question. And to summarise the answer I gave to this gentleman, because I had to tap into the source to ask about it, and basically the question was no, they don't exist, it's just nonsense. For a start, and he gave a very logical response. He said, firstly, gold is a very low frequency material, and used it as an example, you would never use gold to allow yourself to move from one part of the universe to another part of the universe, because it's a low frequency product material. And second, there isn't the components within gold that would allow an environment to be created. It's an inert material. It's a metal. It can't be used for that sort of stuff. So that basically answers the question. They don't exist. It's nonsense. It's somebody inventing something to control people, and there's a lot of that. There's an awful lot of that. If it feels low frequency, throw it away. If you look at it and you go, that can't possibly be real, throw it away. You know, and that goes for any teacher. If there's something that you don't resonate with, that you don't feel feels right with you because of where you are, for instance, not because of whether it's right or wrong, but where you are, then leave it. You know, and that includes me as well. Leave it. You know, put it to one side because it's not probably not right for you, or in some of these instances, it's rubbish anyway. It's trash. It's just you know, nonsense. Okay. Any more questions? Right. Okay. I'd like to move on to triangulation now. Now, triangulation. Triangulation is something that we use for navigation. Okay, and we use it in surveying as well. We select 3 points and we use it as a method of navigating around the coastline, or we use it as a method of gaining height and distance for surveying and that sort of stuff. But what does triangulation mean in terms of spiritual context? Well, triangulation has two major functions. One is a direct triangulation, and one is an inflational or an area-based triangulation. And you can get triangulation on triangulation. Triangulation is really a way of saying that we are affected by those around us. Okay? We're affected by their energies. It is elevation by association. Now maybe triangulation is the wrong word in this instance, and maybe elevation by association is the best. But it's a similar thing to the 100th monkey principle. Have you heard that?
Yes.
Where if you train 100 monkeys to use a typewriter, irrespective of where those 100 monkeys are, the rest of the population of the monkeys in the world will also be able to use a typewriter because of the interconnectivity, the telepathic interconnectivity of those monkeys. Right? It's similar to that. If two people are working together and one person is of a higher frequency than another, then that person, irrespective of whether they are truly working with what that person is working with, they will naturally be pulled up a level because of the association. So that's person-to-person triangulation. That's person-to-person or one-to-one elevation to association. Okay? So they will be moved up a little bit. They start to get normalised to a level of normal condition, which is an average of where this person is and where this person was. The person at the top of the frequency pole doesn't lose, which is not like decanting things from one bottle to another bottle, for instance. But the one at the bottom does gain. That's one of the things that does happen. The person who's at the high frequency doesn't lose. If there are a group of people working together, then they can help each other move upwards. So if there's 5 people, for instance, working together, and 4 of those people are of the same frequency, and the 5th isn't, then that 5th will go up even further, because the average of the 5 is higher than the average of the two together. So they will move up even further. And again, these other 4 don't lose their frequency, because it's a positive movement upwards. So then you can get a group of people, okay? Get a group of people working together. And so the direct triangulation between person to person and then a group of people working together make a group of people. Now if there's a group of people over here working together who've got an average of frequency, and there's a group of people over here that are working together with an average frequency, and for some strange reason there's somebody who knows somebody in that group, and there's somebody who knows somebody in that group, you start to get direct line triangulation between groups. So if the frequency of this group is there, for instance, and the frequency of this group is down here, this group will be pulled up to the average of the 2 groups. So groups can affect each other, okay, through direct triangulation. Not only that, the individuals in the middle, i.e. the contacts between the 2 groups, they also get pulled up. So they also, if they're in direct line because they are friends of friends of somebody, or friends of friends of somebody, they also get pulled up. Okay? So that's direct line triangulation. That's direct association with each other. And if we're high frequency, we affect the other person, they get pulled up. Or the groups affect each other, affecting people in the middle. Yeah.
Excuse me, why is it called triangulation if there are 2? That's a stupid question, but...
I'll come to it in a moment. Right. This is in essence, the point-to-point triangulation is the component of the bigger picture. I'll explain that. When you get 3 groups together, right? A bigger piece of triangle, then you've got a triangle. That's the first geometric configuration of triangulation, is the triangle. Everything else is based upon a triangle after that, whether it's not, whether it is or whether it isn't, in terms of its absolute shape. So if you get 3 groups together, and again you start to get this direct contact through association with friends and family relatives between the groups, then the average of the groups together gets pulled up. So if this group is high, this group is a bit low, and that group's the middle, these all get pulled up towards the centre point, or the average of the 3, and this one stays where it is. They get pulled together in a triangular fashion, whichever shape of triangle that ends up being. And the people in between get affected. Also, the people in the area between them get affected as well. So if you've got people in Santa Fe, people in Albuquerque, and people, where else? Where else is close by to here? Taos.
Bernalillo.
Yeah, are working together.
Yes.
Then the people, then they will move up to the average, and the friends and people who are linking those groups together will also get pulled up. And then if there's people in between the people, within the locations know each other, they also get pulled up as well. So that's where you get the triangulation from. Okay, so the direct line is like one side of a triangle, but it's only when you get the three groups together that you start to get the three sides of a triangle working properly. Now you can get other shapes where you get a fourth group associated with them, and so therefore you get squares or other rectangles, other shapes that are created, and they can get 5. They get pentagon shapes. You get 6. You get the hexagon shapes, and you get 7 and 8, and you can get all sorts of different shapes that affect each other. But if you break them down, they all become a portion of them. They can all be broken down in terms of a triangle. Because a square can be broken down into 4 triangles, a rectangle can be broken down into 4 triangles, and some of the other things, like pentagons, can also be broken down into triangles. So that's where the triangulation comes from. Does that make sense to us? Yeah? Okay, yeah. So we affect each other positively, generally. Yeah? If it was the other way around, where there was significantly more people that were, if you like, a lower frequency compared to the high frequency, then triangulation still works, but it's a slow, much slower process. Because if you think about it, if somebody's right up there, and the rest of the people they're working with are right down there, they don't move up too far, do they? It's quite a long way to move. So the rising through the frequencies through this method of triangulation, or elevation through association, takes a bit longer to get to.
Is there a time factor there as far as their resistance to the positive energy or their openness?
It's the level of openness is a function of their being pulled up. So it's, in the first presentation this morning, I talked about people who weren't previously open to the things of spirit, or weren't previously interested in metaphysics or anything like this, are suddenly becoming interested. That's when they've slowly become affected by those people around them who are. And there may be no verbal communication. It could just be locale communication. Yeah.
Guy, one of the unseen teachers that work with us wanted to lower an aspect of his ashram down to the porch out there. And he used the triangulation, which I'm just learning about now. Mount Taylor, which is an extinct volcano. Sandias, this is down in Albuquerque area. Sandias, which is what, just mountains?
Yes, it's Sandias are 10,000 feet high.
Yeah.
So is Mount Taylor is about 10 or 11,000 feet high.
Yeah.
These are high mountain ranges. And then this point here was the third point in the triangulation. And he's even reinforced it.
What? Yeah, I don't understand.
What he's done is he's used local areas of high frequency and linked them together.
Oh,
so
okay.
The area in the middle is a new environment frequentially.
Oh, and it feels that way too.
Yeah.
Very much.
And so,
and you can feel the difference. If you're outside of that area of triangulation, you'll feel one way. When you move into that area of triangulation, you might feel like elated or a bit more upbeat, or
Bliss was the word.
Yeah. Sorry?
Bliss.
Bliss, yeah. You will feel a more blissful state, a more calm state. You may even get tingling, and those sorts of things.
So what he did then was create here the third point, so that there would be a triangulation between the other two high frequency points.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
That's beautiful. Now, excuse me. I hope, are you finished?
Yes, I'm finished.
Why does triangulation work? Is it some law in the universe that upholds and always makes it work?
It's a natural function of the multiverse to ascend.
Wow.
Think of it in terms of this way. If you have an air bubble under the water,
yes.
Where does it go?
Up.
Why does it go up?
Well, because it's lighter than the water.
Because?
Oh, the shape.
No,
No, water is made of air.
correct, which is a lower frequency.
Yes.
Oh,
The air is a higher frequency component of water. Ice is a lower frequency component of water, isn't it? So a higher frequency will always move up.
Oh, what a
Above a
wonderful
low frequency.
observation. Wow.
So what does ice do in water?
Well, it floats. Or a lot of it sinks, 90% of it sinks.
Yeah, but it sinks primarily if it's got radiation on it, which is leave a low
Oh,
frequency.
really?
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, so it's heavy water. It goes, well, if the water's heavy water, then ice sinks.
Yeah, icebergs roll
Yeah,
Oh, do they?
yeah.
and roll.
Huh.
As
So
they
it's
go.
so you can see very easily there's a higher frequency has to get out of a lower frequency. So the air bubble has to rise up above through the water to the top.
Oh, my God.
And what's more, if any of you have been a scuba diver and you've seen and you've dived